All right, so we are recording. It is 9:30. We are going to get started. Those of you online, thanks for joining. You can just see my screen and that's it. What were your questions? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it was about social media.
Okay. So today we're going to talk about CMAs and how to do them using Flex. I've got Flex pulled up on the screen, and the handout for today is actually in the notes. If you're online in the chat box, you will see them. I have it pinned to the top. So if you need to download the attachment, that's cool. So when you do a CMA, there's some key points to think about. Always go take a look at the property before you do numbers, because there's going to be things that you just can't see online. Things that they've upgraded. Maybe they've enclosed the garage, changed the deck. Maybe it's not in that great a shape. So make sure you go take a look at it. Make sure you also verify the heated square footage. If you walk into a home and you can't tell whether it's 1,200 or 2,000 heated square feet, measure it, because you really need to know what the square footage is. Confirm items that stay in the house, meaning there may be a hot tub or something which really isn't going to give a lot of value, but that's one of the things you're going to do when you walk through the house. And then you're going to look for additions, different things they've done that may not have been permitted. You know, if they close the garage in and your tax record says, hey, it doesn't show that, then you need to ask the questions. Did you close this in? Did you get permits? I don't see that. If they have a big building out back and you've already done like an aerial view of it, well, you want to make sure that did you get a permit to pour that concrete and run the power back there, because otherwise we can't give it value. So that's a big important thing to go out and take a look at it. Never make adjustments in bedrooms. Appraisers, they look at heated square footage, so they don't look at bedrooms. We'll talk about that when we go to our adjustments. You really don't make adjustments for land. You know, I've seen them where there's 3/4 of an acre, same type of house across the street, and it was on 14 acres, and there's no value difference in the land. And it's because if you can't build on it, then the appraiser doesn't give it any more value. It's more of appeal to a buyer, but they're not going to give it any more value. Now, if it's along the beach and it's waterfront, that's a different story. It's more value there, right? But if you're in Richlands or Beulaville or Jacksonville, it's not going to give you a whole lot. Just like a corner lot isn't going to give you a whole lot different versus a regular lot. No, unless you can build on it. That's the caveat. If you can't build on it, then it really isn't going to be able to give you any more value. And if you can build on it, then you have to look at other characteristics like can you put a septic? Is there a water tap? Is there power to it? Things like that. That'll be a different day when we talk about land. Never ask a seller what they owe when you go out to look at the house. You only cover that when you go over the net sheet. It's not something you need to know. A lot of times when you go meet with the seller the first time, you really haven't covered agency just quite yet. You probably will before you leave, but it's not something that you're just going to walk in, open the door and say, hey, can we, what do you owe? You don't want to do that. So the first thing you want to do is simply pull the tax record. If you go to menu in your in the MLS and you're looking for where it may be different on yours. You're looking where it says taxes and go to CRS simple search. If you don't have a star beside it, put a star beside it, because then it'll put it across your menu across the top. You should have taxes when you click menu. Should be somewhere where it has taxes, and then just click CRS simple search. Yeah, if you put stars beside it, it puts it across the menu bar on the top of your for a quick access on your MLS. So we're going to go to CRS simple search. It's got to pop open a different window. And I got a couple addresses that I'm going to start with. If you happen to have one that you want me to try to do a CMA on, just let me know. McKenna, can you hear me okay? Just making sure. I hope so. I didn't hear you if you did say anything. Cool. Got it. All right. Sorry, Args. So the first one we're going to do is just Ashbury Park, 115 Ashbury Park. Put the address in and it pulls up the property record. See, it gives me a nice little sketch of the property so I can see what it looks like. And also, sorry. It also tells me things like square footage, tells me who the current owner is. So if somebody by the name of Steve calls me and says they're looking to sell that house, they're probably not the owner, right? So we want to make sure that we know that that's the owner. Yeah, there they go. So my main thing here is I'm looking at it, see it's a single story. I see that it's a 2-car garage. I would have seen all this when I went out and did the walkthrough, but I'm looking at the square footage and I'm looking at the community. So now what I'll do is let's go into Flex. We went out, we've looked at the house. Now we're going to come in and I'm just going to do a simple search. I'm going to do a quick search and we're going to do a search for all the homes that have sold in that community. So if you look, we're going to change status to closed sales. And then we'll come down to subdivision. And we know subdivision is Ashbury Park. As soon as my computer catches up, boom. Ashbury Park. I did a quick search, just a simple search, just like you're doing a search for someone looking to buy a house. We'll pull it over and do a CMA in just a minute. But right now, I just want to do a simple search to try to get my comps. So when I do it, I start by finding my comparables and then I put it into a CMA. Because if you go into CMA and you start putting the subject information, then it goes to comps and you have to click the tab to go out to search for comps. It gets kind of cumbersome, right? And then you really can't manipulate a lot of things to pull it back. It's just a little bit more difficult, right? So I always start trying to find the comps first, and then I can create the CMA from there. Make sense? So we're just doing a search right now and trying to find the best comps. So I'm looking at closed, and when I look at closed, if I look at sold date, you probably have where it has this date range. If you click this back and forth arrow right here, it changes it to where you can go days back. And if I click days, it'll change to months or years. I want to do months back. And I'm just going to put 6 because I want to go back 6 months. This shows me everything that is sold in Ashbury Park for the last 6 months, right? An appraiser can go back as far as a year. If I'm in an area, let's say like this comes up with 14. See the view results here, it says 14. So I'm going to change that to, let's say, I don't know, 3 months. Most recent sales gives me the best value because it's kind of like a bad analogy, but it works, is a flea market. So if you go to a flea market, right, and you go to this guy's table and he's got all this stuff there, and today nobody's there. Well, you could probably negotiate pretty good, right? But if a bus pulls in and there's a ton of people, you're probably not going to negotiate very well because it's recent, what's going on right now. It's recent sales. That's really confined to a smaller timeline. But when you think of real estate and you spread that out, right? If you got to figure, if we look at a comparable sale that went back 3 months, and we're not going to go into market for a couple more months, that now makes that 5 or 6 months before we get into contract how old that comparable sale is. Does that make sense? So you want to try to use one that's most recent sale. So we're going to go 3 months, and we did Ashbury Park. Some other characteristics in fields you may want to put in is like stories. So we're going to hit add field. And then here I'll type in stories. Because if it's a community that has a 2-story, you want to use 2-story versus 2-story. If it's in a community that has 2 stories and you have a 1-story, well, you want to use 1-story versus 1-story. You don't really want to use a 2-story over a 1-story. I'm not saying you never do, but you just try not to. So the results still say we have 9. That's pretty good. Let's look at those. We'll click at the list. This should be a fairly easy one because it's in a community with recent sales. So we have 9 different comparables and they all look about the same, don't they? They're all single story, 2-car garage. Notice one of the fields I have over here, a stipulation is sale. You don't want to pull things like foreclosures or short sales, but none of them are short sales or foreclosures. Just don't know why this one dumped so low compared to the other ones. It doesn't have a garage, first of all.
I don't know why, but mine's showing 0. I don't know what I did wrong.
You put the right community and you put the right timeline for sales.
It should be back.
We went 3 months back for Ashbury Park.
But it's ahead and not on track.
I think yours
So-
basically residential search on top of mine, it says residential.
You change it right here. Do this drop down and you can change it to this. Are you talking about, what do you mean here? It's just a save search that I have. You can save the different searches and use them as templates. Yeah. So another trick that I'll do, so I have 9 here, right? So if I click on sold date and I click on sort descending, because I have 9 and I want to make sure I get the most recent. So I'm going to do sold date and sort descending. And it's going to bring the most recent sales, which is what I want, and work my way back from most recent sales. So now what I'm looking at is heated square footage, right? Because that's the other thing. That one's 1380. That's a good comparable, isn't it? Because our subject is 1435. Here's another one. That's 1435. That one's right on the money. That one's 1449. And that one's back in July. So you see, what I'm doing is I'm checking the box over here, right? Because these are the ones that I want to use for my comps to pull into a CMA. Everybody tracking?
Yep.
Everybody good? Everybody online good? Cool. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if the property has ever been listed before. So at the top, I'm just going to type in my subject address, 115 Ashbury, bless you, Park. And there it shows that it's sold before. I don't want to click on that because it's going to take me off of here. So if I click on new tab, it opens up a whole new tab with that property address. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the MLS number. This is just going to save me time from manually putting in the subject properties information. So I right click, highlight it, right click the MLS number. I go back to where I have all my search results, right? And then I hit CMA. The very top corner up here, just hit CMA. Now it's going to ask me, do I want to use all the results? Use selected results? I'm going to use selected because those are the ones that I checked. I thought were most comparable, right? Pretty good?
Yeah.
Hit use selected. Now we're going to do a full CMA. It automatically has that. Make sure this has, for statistic field, a square foot heated primary. And then I'll click on next. Here is just a cover page. You can type whatever you want in here. This is part of your CMA presentation. If you want to put in their name and whatever you'd like to put. I don't ever put anything here. But at the end, you can put a whole presentation out. Here, before we put in populate our MLS, we want to make sure that all these fields are set correctly. So on the handout, if you go to the next page, page 2, you will see the list of fields under 8E. It has number of bedrooms. Appraiser does not make an adjustment for number of bedrooms, but we still like to see that. Number of baths, half baths, heated square feet, fireplace. It lists it all there. If you don't have those there, just simply come down to the bottom and hit new item. Select this drop down and then find the field. And once you find the field, I'll just put in that. I've already got acreage up there, but I don't really need it. I can change the name. And then If I want to move it, I'll select this box and I'll just drag it to where I want to put it in order. Once you have all this set up, right, click here where it says Save, Replace, Template. It'll pop open this window. And you can type New and do Template. I have Basic Template CMA. You can type that, Template, and then check this box. It says, this is my default CMA template. So next time I go to do CMA, all my fields are set, right? Everything's already set. I don't have to redo it. Everything's already in place. This way, I have all the fields that I need every time I do a CMA. It's all in order, makes things very easy. So now that I have that set up, I'm going to go ahead and pull in the subject properties information. I can go ahead and type it in manually if I like, but remember we went and copied that MLS number. So I'm going to click Auto Populate, right click, hit Paste, Submit, and it pulls over all that properties details. Picture, square footage, everything. Saves you tons of time, right? If you weren't able to do that and it wasn't the MLS, you would have to come back to this tax record and go through and pull all the data or take notes when you go on your pre-listing and then go back to, and CMA, put it all in here. So it just saves you a lot of time. You know it's a 3-bed, 2-bath, but you'd have to go look at the square footage. Does it have a fireplace? What's the acreage? When was it built? How many car garage? You have to put all that in there versus it just automatically populating you. Everybody good? And then we'll simply go down to the bottom and hit Next. If anybody online has questions, just unmute yourself and speak up so I can hear you, because I can't see you because we're on a different screen. Here, this page just lists the comps. Now, if I would have just started my CMA and hit at the very beginning and hit CMA at the top, when I got to this part, it would have nothing. This is where you would click Add Comparables, but we've already done all that, right? Because we've already added our comps in. We've already done the hard work. Now we're going to do the adjustments. The hard work is finding the comps. The rest of it is just interpreting the data. So now that we have our comps, we'll hit Next, and it comes to adjustments. I wish I had one of those sounds like the Jeopardy, waiting for things to come up. Do, 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 do. Yeah, we'll let you sing. We'll let you sing. So here, if you look on the left, these are all the fields that we put in place. And this is where we'd want to select like BAS full. This is our subject, has 2 BAS. These are the comps and what they have. If they were different, we would need to make an adjustment. We go down to garage. Ours is a 2-car. This one doesn't have anything, so we'll need to make an adjustment for that. If you look on the very last page of the handout, it has what you would make the adjustment for each item. That is your cheat sheet when it comes to making adjustments. So it tells you every item and what to make adjustments for. So some of the fields you have to make adjustments for are obviously full bath, half bath, heated square footage. Some appraisers are making adjustments for fireplace. Remember, we don't do anything for land, right? Age would be $1,000 per year, so we would go ahead and do the adjustments here. Garage. I have detached garage because sometimes if it says that there's a detached garage, if you click on the property, it'll pop open another window, and then you can look and see what they're talking about for a detached garage. So you can actually go through the photos and see, what do you mean detached garage? This one doesn't have it. I was just showing you that when you click on the address, it pops open that window for that property. So you don't have to worry about getting out of this CMA to go look at it. Fencing tells you, we know we have a full fence. This is really hard without looking at photos because this data is just kind of hard to interpret. So you need to look at photos to figure out if they got a full fence or not. We're going to assume they all have the same type of fence. So let's go back up to heated square footage. So this one's 1380 and that one's 1438. We would have to make calculations in order to do that for each one. I'm going to show you the quick way to do it instead of you using a calculator or taking off your shoes or counting or anything like that. So I just figured, look at you, Roberta, it's all good. So if you come down, there's this tab, it has auto adjust comparables. That'll actually calculate all these things for you, but you have to set that up. So if you come down here to edit adjustment list, this pops open a window and you probably have nothing here. It has automatic adjustments and manual adjustments. Don't worry about manual adjustments, just do automatic. And you'll simply click add new. Type of property we're dealing with is residential. The field we're gonna make an adjustment for is gonna be heated square footage, boom, and then the value. So depending on the community, you're gonna put in whatever value it needs to be. For me, this community, Ashbury Park, we're gonna change it just to $50 a square foot. Now, some communities are 40, some are 80. It really depends. If I was in Onslow Bay, I may go to $65 a square foot, right? If I'm somewhere like Highland Forest, I'm probably going to $80 a square foot. It's a higher end community. They're nicer, better construction homes, right? So you adjust it based on the community and the construction type of home. Make sense?
So to get the numbers for the price per square foot, would you just go off recent appraisals?
So there's a lot of different ways to do it. The easiest way is just to keep it at a certain price, because we could look at the homes that have sold and take an average price per square foot and put that in here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if you just use a basic $50 to $80, your numbers are going to come out about the same. They just are. I know it may not seem like it because the price per square foot's like $1.60 versus $50 a square foot, but at the end of the day, after you make the adjustments, your range is going to be about the same. As a math guy, I'm telling you it works, okay? So we're going to keep things simple. We're just going to leave it at 50. I'm going to hit save. Make sure you add the other ones, like a bathroom. We'll do $5,000 for a full bath, $3,000 for a half bath, heated square footage, and then age of house, which we're going to do for a year. It's about $1,000 a year. Now, we're going to do one here a little bit later that is an older home that you wouldn't make an adjustment for age because of the effective age. It had been completely rehabbed and remodeled, which means it's up to today's standards. We'll talk about that when we get there. So, again, this is like a George Foreman, just like we set our fields when we were at the subject properties information. Once we set all this, it's here. So every time we come in to do a CMA, all I got to do is come in and look, do I want to keep it as $50 a square foot? And do I need to make a year adjustment? As long as I edit those, then I'll hit the return to CMA. So now I have my adjustment list, and I'm going to hit auto adjust comparables. When I click that, it's going to come up saying, hey, we're going to make all these adjustments to your CMA. Do you want to do it? Yep. Hit OK. So it made 10 adjustments for me automatically. So hit OK. If I come back into heated square footage, look at that. It calculated everything for me. I didn't take off my shoes. I didn't have to do anything. Yep, I look at Roberta again. It'll make the adjustments, but only for the fields that I put in. So we have to go look at garage because that wasn't one of them, right? So this one doesn't have a garage, so we have to manually put it in. Do we add to this or do we subtract it? We add, right? Because we're trying to make it equal to our subject. A garage is about $4,000 per garage, so we're going to do $8,000. This one is a one car. Our subject is 2. We have to make an adjustment for it, right? We're going to do $4,000 for that one too. They're all rest of the same, aren't they? Now we could go through and look at the other fields, but we already looked at them and there's not a whole lot different. None of them, that has a fireplace. We can make an adjustment for fireplace. Some appraisers aren't making adjustments for fireplace. I usually don't make an adjustment for fireplace because it really depends on the appraiser you get. A lot of them aren't doing it. Fencing, you can. You just need to see what type of fencing the other ones have. So we would have to look through all the photos and things like that. They are, if you have, if it's a metal fence, they're not going to give anything for a metal chain link fence. Wood fence, yes. Metal chain link, they just don't really give a whole lot. If they do, it may be $500. So, but if, let's say you have a nice sized backyard and it's chain link, and then the guy across the street has a big backyard and it's wood, they're probably going to take some from you because that's a nicer fence, right? So that's when you need to look at fence. But we're talking a couple $500 to $2,000 for instructional purposes. We're not going to make any adjustments to fence. We're just going to move on to the next step. Make sense? If it had a pool, if you look at the adjustments, when we were back at the subject here, and we had our field list, I would have added a new item, and you can simply type in, there is a field for pool, in-ground pool. You would type that and put it in so that you had it whenever you came over to your adjustment screen. And then you can look at the pools to see if they have a pool or not to make your adjustment for pool. When it comes to pools, an appraiser is only going to give an adjustment for a pool, a major adjustment for a pool. First of all, it has to be in-ground. If it's above ground pool, they won't give anything. If it's partially in-ground, they're still not going to give anything, even if it has a deck around it. They'll give an adjustment for the deck, but not for the pool, because it's temporary. It's not a concrete in-ground pool. Even those nice panel pools with nice big decks around it, they don't give anything for. And you can call them, I've talked to several and they just don't. When it comes to in-ground pools, you know, it costs $50,000 to put an in-ground pool in. They're going to give maybe $5-10 grand for an adjustment for it. They just don't give a whole lot. They just don't. That's just how they do things. Yeah. Now, if it's in a community where there's a lot of pools and they don't have one, that's going to be more because it's like the standard with all the other homes. We don't really have all that kind of community here. But if we did, it would be like that. Solar panels. They're not giving any adjustments for solar panels. None, really. Because it's kind of like I have basic appliances in my house and I decided to put stainless steel in my house. That's my personal preference. They're not going to give any value for the different appliances. The way an appraiser looks at it is those solar panels you put on the roof is basically the same as you paying your electric bill. Now, it's probably not paid off, right? And by the time the life expectancy of it is what, 20 years. So it's going to have to be replaced, or by the time it's paid off, it's going to be obsolete. Same. No. No. Yeah. That's right. That's right. It only covers about 75% of they won't take care of all your electricity. It only covers about 75% of the usage. And no, a lot of the components, they're only warranted for 10. The panels are warranted for 20. A lot of people finance them for 25 years most of the time. And a lot of the companies are already out of business or out of business by the time, if anything, warranty issues. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing is metal roofs, right? An appraiser, again, is not going to give anything more for a metal roof versus a stick-built roof.
And they don't give anything for a new roof?
No, because it's considered maintenance. Yep. It's kind of like I went ahead and repainted the whole exterior of the house. They're not going to give you anything different because you repainted the house. I repainted the interior. They're not going to give you any different. I replaced the floors. They're not going to give you anything different. We'll get to that. Yep. No, they don't give you more value. They give you, they'll lean you more towards the high side, meaning I have stainless steel and granite countertops and everybody else doesn't. Well, they'll probably give you a little bit of adjustment for condition, but it won't be anything near what you paid for it, right? Or they'll just say, if your range is 200 to 210, they're going to lean you to 210, maybe 212, because it's a nicer home for the community type thing. So it really just depends. First of all, on the appraiser, because I could send 5 different appraisers out to the home and I'm going to get 5 different opinions. It just really depends on the appraiser. But you're not going to get, huh? Yeah, yeah. But we'll talk more about that when we do the next one. That is outside of community. So we'll hit next. This is where we interpret the data. This is where we look at the information and figure out how to determine what the price is. I always go straight down here and I look at my average and I look at my median. My average is 240, right? And my median is 239. Now, when you do a price range, you don't want to go to a homeowner and say your home will sell between 234, which is the low, and 249. That is a $15,000 difference. If I came to you and I said your house will sell between 235 and 250, that's pretty hard to plan, especially if you're in a situation where you're going to make 5,000 or 20,000 and you need the money. See what I'm saying? So always keep your range around $8,000 to $9,000, meaning from the low to the high should only be somewhere around 8,000 bucks. Okay. So here, if we look at the average and the median, well, that's only $1,000 difference, isn't it? So that's the first thing that I look at. And then I come up and I look at what the total adjustment was for each property. This gives me the property, what it sold for, how long it was on the market, when it closed, what it sold, what the sold price was. This is the total amount net adjustment, and that's the adjusted price. So I'm looking for the ones that are the least in the most recent sales. This one, 234, 4,900 just sold in September. Pretty good, huh? This one is 2,100 adjustments, just sold in August, and it's 249. Well, that's not really helping me. What I mean by helping me is all that did was give me a low and a high. I'm looking up here to try to get what's called a benchmark, a center point, something that's solid of a recent sale, so that in 3 or 4 months, I know that that is going to be my staple for my, my hard set selling point for why the house is appraised at this value. Because what will happen is when the buyer sends an appraiser out, if the appraiser cannot find value and it's a VA loan, they will do what's called Tidewater. They'll invoke Tidewater. What Tidewater is that the appraiser cannot find the price that you're under contract with. They're not coming up with the same price, and they're giving the listing agent a chance to justify the price. They're asking you to send over your comps. They want to see your CMA. They have a grid form that they put it on, and they want to see that. So you have to take all your numbers, put it on their grid, and explain why. If I have a solid comparable here, obviously in a few months, that'll be one of my arguments, right? We price there because I've got a solid comparable. See why we kept it within 3 months? Because if it takes a couple months, how long are homes sitting on the market now? 45? It's actually up to 70 now. 70 days on the market. Pretty crazy, huh? That's how quick, that's how things slowed down.
Not a lot, but interest rates don't.
We'll talk about that. They didn't drop. No, I did community. I didn't do radius. We'll do radius next. Yep. All I did here was just in the same subdivision. So when you're looking for comparables, thank you for bringing that up. You want to look at most recent sales, right? There's 5 things you're looking for. Sold date, meaning you don't want to go back more than 6 months. You can go back as far as 12 for an appraisal, but you try to stay within 6 months because that gives us most recent sales. Second is location. You want to stay in the same community. Okay, if you can't find anything in Ashbury Park, then you would just do a radius, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Next, you're looking at type of home. In other words, if it's a single-story house, right, you're using a single-story home. You're not using a manufactured home or a 2-story. You want to use the same construction type. Next is going to be size, heated square footage. Remember, we went through and looked at the ones that were close to the same size, right? 1,400, 1,300, even 1,000. It's 400 square foot difference. But you can see those ones where that, look at the adjustment. It's $16,000 for adjustments on those. It doesn't make it a good comparable compared to the other ones, does it?
Yeah.
So when you do a search, if we didn't have anything in Ashbury Park, and I'll show you on the next search, we would have put a heated square footage range, 200 square foot above and 200 square foot below, and look for homes, because then that starts narrowing things down, right? And then those are the main fields you're looking for. You can narrow it down by also age. If there's a community with new construction, you don't want new construction homes for something that was built 10 years ago. Like Onslow Bay or stateside. You know, they got homes that have been there, it's over 10 years old, and they're still building. Well, you don't want to use new construction because an appraiser's not. There's other homes that have sold there. Now, they may use one new construction, maybe even two, but most of the time, they're not going to use resales. Most of the time. I have seen it where they have used new construction primarily, and they shouldn't have, but that's rare. So we've determined that we have a good range of 239 to 240. We've got some pretty good comps here, right? Most recent sales. I don't know that this is a great comp. It's still within range. What I mean by within range is you want to make sure, if you look, your adjustments for each home, one item shouldn't exceed 10%. Meaning if I had to make an adjustment for age of $15,000, that isn't a good comp. Or if I made an adjustment for square footage of 30 grand, it's not a good comp, right? You want to keep it at about 10 grand. The total adjustments and your total net adjustments shouldn't be more than about 10%. Now the guidelines are 15, but I can tell you on an appraisal, if you look at the very bottom, it has net adjustment. The smaller that number, the more comparable the house is, and that's the way the appraiser is going to lean. So when I say look at the total adjustment here, don't worry about percentage. You're just looking at the lowest number, right? 2150, most recent sale. That's a good comp. We could probably push 249 easily.
I mean, technically, when the negative 3,000 is the lowest.
Yeah, but it's also one of the oldest comps.
Okay.
Yeah, and just because it's negative, no, because it makes it's a less comparable. That's more comparable. That's a higher. Makes this home superior, and this home is inferior.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's less and that's more, which means that house is superior to our subject, and this one is inferior because it's less desirable then because it's less value.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So technically, this one is actually a more comparable. So the range for this one, if it's in great shape, I'm probably going to still lean on the high side. I'm probably going to go 242 to 249. Now, if they got to sell real quick, I'm going to tell them we're probably at 239 to 246. It really depends on where they want to sell, how quick they need to move, right? Could we stretch 249? Sure, we've got comps to get there. The other thing I look at is this: price per square foot. That pushes me, that leans me up. Now I can't list for 262 because I don't have anything showing that, right?
Yeah.
But if a seller wants to say, I want to list for 249, okay, I'll do that because that says 262. That's my adjusted price per square foot for the home. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now if they say, if that said 232 instead of 262, would I feel more comfortable going to 249 or not?
Yeah.
Probably not so much, would I? So you can see how you can easily determine what the price is just by looking at the data here, right? It's all the same thing in appraisal, interpreting the data. Make sense?
Yeah.
If we click next, when you come here, it gives you the low and the high, right? And it tells you the recommended. That's what it says the range is. If you click this box where it says calculate high-low price using a percentage, and that'll say 2.5, leave it there, hit recalculate. It tells me now 234 to 246. That is a, what is that, $10,000, $12,000 range, right? Well, I know I want to be on the higher side of that, so I'm just simply going to change this to 230. We'll just do 238 to 246. Simple as that. So when I print my report, I'm leaving the 293 and the 308 because the seller is going to be like, holy shit, you got it down on the dollar? Damn. So don't worry about taking the dollars out. It's really irrelevant.
And would you always put the 2.5 adjustment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Unless it's like a higher price and it's a wider range, then I may go to 2. But usually 2.5 gives me a good range value. So then I'll click next. And this is where you can select what reports you want to include in your presentation. You're going to include most of these. I'll just leave all these the same. The only thing you're really going to want to change is here, public report. You can leave it at that, but if you click on this, come down and check L-shaped photos. It's more appealing to a seller, okay? What I mean by that is I'm going to go to view. I click view. This is my CMA. This is actually a lot better if I do it like this. If you look in the print screen, this is the different pages, right? That's my comp page. If I come down to the comp, these, see how it's L view, so they can see the photos, right? So if I come down to these properties, it doesn't look good here, but it would have, sorry for those online, here we go. This is a print version. So what it would do, the L shape, it would take, this is the main photo, and these photos would actually be across the bottom and across the top, the side when it prints out. It's a lot easier for a seller to see the other homes and the inside photos than just one photo of the data. Sellers like pictures. They want to see it, right? The other data is still there. It's just that shows the condition of the home to the seller. It's just a lot more appealing of a presentation to a seller. Then once I'm done, I can print or save. I usually just save, and when you save it, I'll save it for the address 115. You can save it however you like. This is just how I do it. Ashbury, and I'll put today's date, 9/19/2024. The reason I do that is because the seller doesn't want to sell now, and we can look at numbers again in 3 months, and I do another one, right? I don't want to keep having the same address and then trying to figure out which one it is, like clicking on it and looking at last update. Yeah, so I have this, and I'll hit save, right? Sorry for you online. I'm trying to keep the tab straight. So now, I come back to the main screen here, and let's say I want to go to a previous CMA. I'll go to menu, come over here to search, click CMA. You see I got a star beside it. It takes it across my top menu. I'll hit CMA, and it lists all the CMAs that I've ever done. So I come down to that 115 Ashbury. Boom, and there's my date. See, here's one, Meadow Farms, 2/2. There's another one on 6/7, same year, but I can tell the difference by just simply coming and not have to worry about clicking on it and then looking at last modify. It's just simply easy to find. Make sense? You can do it by seller's last name or whatever, but if they have multiple properties, it starts to get convoluted. I usually just do it by address.
I do now see him using RPR because this shows a lot more data.
Yes, I have used RPR. RPR is a quick on the fly. So the problem with RPR is you can't make specific adjustments for line items. So RPR is a system that you can use on your phone, and you can pull up the property and then go and select comps. The only thing RPR will pull that MLS doesn't is tax at record sales. So anything that wasn't the MLS, that was maybe a private, like a for sale by owner, RPR will pull that, right? So I have plenty of comps here. If I didn't have comps, then I'd probably go to RPR and try to find tax records there. And then I would have to manually put it in as a comp in here to do it. Because when you do RPR and you go to make the adjustments, it has a scale. Is it less or is it more? You can't make line items. You just have to do a scale. And then you're kind of limited. The portions that you adjust to low or high are increments, and you can't adjust that increment to smaller or larger. It's a set increment of a couple thousand, and it's harder to get a good number. So when I say on the fly, if I'm out and I'm looking at a house and I don't know the area and don't know the numbers, I can run it, quick. Or if someone says, "Can you look at this property for me in Raleigh and tell me what it's worth?" Well, I don't have access to MLS in Raleigh, but RPR will pull the data. And I could go and pull comps and do a quick little idea, and I can say, well, it's probably here, right? But for this area, when I have a better option, no, I don't use RPR. And it's just because RPR gives you way too wider of a range. It just doesn't pull comps.
When I was newer,
Mhm.
I used it 'cause it was easier.
Yep.
Right? It makes it redundant somehow, and that's how I learned how to do like a CMA, and then I went back to reflect like, okay, I can kind of like I like us because you can tailor it more, but
Yeah.
I still like our pairs sometimes. It's kind of like Zillow, so if you've got like price range at the
The
beginning,
RVM, yeah.
Yeah.
and then you kind of just
The presentation is really, really nice at RPR.
Yeah.
And you can go in and manipulate it, but by the time you go in and start manipulating and changing things, you could have already had it printed out by in the in MLS. Mhm. Yeah. It's an app or it's another program. It's free. It's free. It's on the MLS. You can access. Yeah, I don't get into that. I don't want people to go that way for a default because those numbers are just too wide. It's a really nice presentation and it has a lot of data, but I just don't use that. Any questions about CMA, about a basic CMA before we do one that's not basic?
So this one you did 5 comps. Is there a limit to how many properties you could use as comps?
Yeah, I normally only do 3 to 5. You want to have at least 3. An appraiser is going to use normally only 3. Sometimes they'll use 4 or 5, right? So if we went back to this one, we'll go back to the one we just looked. Good question, because we'll take a couple of those out and I'll show you how to do that. So we'll come back to this. Nope, that wasn't the one. It was Ashbury Park today. And I'll come down here to edit. So I went through all this and we were at summary and we're looking at the numbers. And I determined that this one is, I don't want to use this one and I don't want to use this one, okay? 402 and 406 outer. I'll come back to my comps and I'll simply uncheck them here. 402 and 406, so that leaves me 3. Then I simply click right back to my summary. It took them out. And look what it did to my, here. Didn't change it much, did it? It was 240 to 239, 240, now it's 239, 241. Still has the same high and low. And I knew it would because these two, right?
Yeah.
Look what I did to this though. My indicated price per square foot is 244. That was 262. See what I mean? Got it. So now that, yeah, it's a lot tighter range.
Yeah.
And when you're talking to sellers and you're presenting the CMA, need to make sure you're not using words like, this is what I think, here's what I determined, right? You want to say, this is what the market says. This is the market data. This is what the sales are, right? You don't want to say you, because you keep saying you and they don't like it. What are they going to do? They're going to go get opinion from somebody else. So when you're talking and you're presenting it, saying, all right, I brought the data back. One of the things I love doing is when I go back to sit down with the seller and I get ready to talk about the numbers, I'll set everything on the table and I'll say, so what's your homework? What do you think it's worth? And they'll look at me and they'll chuckle and they'll be like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's what you're here for. And I'll be like, and so then I call them out and I'll be like, I know you looked on Zillow. I know you looked. I know you got an idea. I mean, tell me what you think. You have a number in your head. Where do you want to be? Because I just want to see, I want to have an idea if they're going to be happy or they're going to be upset when I get the number. See what I'm saying? It's a psychological thing so that when I'm explaining it, you know what I mean? I can help to get to that.
Yeah.
I know where I have to spend more time and explain more if it's going to be higher or lower. Make sense? So then when I get to it, and if they say, you know, we were hoping it was going to be 300,000. We're at 245. There's nothing else that's sold here. So when you're showing them the comps, yeah. So, but when you're showing them the comps, you're going through like, these are the ones that have recently sold, right? How did you come up with 300? And then they'll start chuckling. Well, we were just hoping that we get that much.
Yeah.
Come on, we knew we weren't going to get that much. Yeah, you got me. No. Anyway. All right. Yep.
So when you go through the little video class on MLS for CMA, it teaches you to put the address in the search bar and then go down to comparable search. Click that and it pulls up like a quick search that already has like sort of comparable properties that you can choose from. Why do you recommend not using that route?
Because I would rather look for the data myself versus the system telling me what data to look for.
Okay.
I'm trying to take it from just kind of a clean slate and any preconceived anything from any other data, right? And just start from scratch and do my own search instead of it telling me, do you want it? Because if you can go, I can do a radius search. I can go and put the property in and say pull comps within a radius of this address, right? And it'll do that. But I want to stay in the community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It may be close to a line where it's going to pull from another community and really skew numbers. I don't want to do that. If I want to do that, then I'll do it this other way, which I'm going to show you next. So we'll get out of this. We'll leave that. So we're going to start from scratch again. And this time we are going to do 174 Half Moon Church. We'll pull the property up first. So this actually is a property that I flipped last year. If you're here, we can also pull the tax record by going to this little drop down and go to property report. This one I'm starting with just pulling all the data first to look at the property, just if we went out. So it's 1,330 heated square feet. I can see there's the photos. Turned out pretty nice. And let's look at the age. Not bad. So the age of belt is 1975, but look at this, effective year, 2004. They moved it up. It's not 2024. We just rehabbed it last year, but 3-bed, 2 baths. So this is going to be one that we're going to do a radius search on. So I'm going to come back to my MLS, and we're going to go to quick search again, just like we're searching for a regular property for someone to buy. I'm going to change. I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to come over here to this little push tab, locate address. And I'm just going to put the address in, 174 Half Moon Church. And this is Jacksonville. This is not in the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
I knew that when I went out and looked at it. And I'm going to use this location. Yep, that's where it's at. And that's going to say radius search. I'll hit radius. It's going to ask me how far out. I'm going to put this one at 2. Normally I do a mile, but I know I'm going to probably need to go a little further. So I'm going to do 2. Let's just do 1.5 miles. We'll do 1.5 miles. And then I'll hit create radius. So then it creates this nice big blue circle for me. So now I'm going to come over to my characteristics of the property, right? Because it just has active and pending. Now we're going to go closed. I'm going to change this to, let's do 6 months back. There are 52 homes. Do I want to look through 52 homes? Yep. So remember, this is going to be one that we have to narrow down a little bit different. So what are we going to do next to narrow it down? What? Subtype. Okay, we'll do single family home. Okay, it's a good one. Let's see how it changed. Oh, still 52.
Now
Square footage. Okay, what was our subject? Okay, so we'll put it, let's say what, 1,100 to, well, let's just go 1,600. Still 17. Now what are we going to do? Stories. Yep, we can do stories. Condition of sale is another good one. We don't have a lot of foreclosures right now, but we'll look at that. So stories, we're going to put maximum of 1 because it's a single story. Only took 1. We still got 16 there, don't we? So we could do add. If you don't have stipulation of sale, you can add that, like she said. And we would just want to put none, so we exclude foreclosures and short sales and things like that. It actually took 1 away, didn't it? So let's just take a look at the list. So we got 15. We narrowed it down. We've got 15. Let's see what that comes up to be. The other thing we could do is we could come up here to and change it to 3 months back. Now we have 5,
Sweet.
right? Let's look at those 5. Now, if I'm looking at this piece of this here, I know they bought it for 224 in 2023 and they're looking to sell. So the first thing that comes up is 115. Do I think that's probably going to be a good comp? Probably not, right? Probably, we're not trying to skew the numbers, but we know that's way off. The other way is, look, 115, and then we have 192, 199, 226, 216. So these may be good comps, even though the ages are a lot different. I'm not going to make an adjustment for age on this property because this one's a 70s. These are 80s. Even if I had a 2000 or a 24, I'm not going to make an adjustment for age. If I make an adjustment, it may be for condition type. Like this one's been completely remodeled and the other ones aren't, right? You would, that's where I would, but look, these don't have garage, so that's a good one. That one does, but I don't feel like I have enough good ones to choose from. So let's go back to edit, and we're going to take this to, let's take it to 5 months back. Gives me 14. So let's look at this list. There's one at 257 on Spring Drive. It is 14. That's a pretty good one, isn't it? Looks like it. That one is a 1268, 2011. It's a little newer than I want to. I like these 80s. Let's do this one. I'm not worried about the price. It's 80, 1200. That's a pretty good one, right? Not a bad one. That one's probably a little new. I don't know, because there's another 80s. We can use that one. So now we got 3 selected. We're at our minimum, aren't we? Here's another one in 80s. Let's try that one. Boom. And we'll just do one more that's in the 80s for closest, because we got this closest square footage. Now we got 5. That's pretty good, isn't it? All meet roast recent sales. Seemed like pretty good. So we'll go ahead and hit CMA. Use selected. All right, that's pulling it up. I'm going to come back over to. Good. We weren't in that tab. Sorry for those online. I'm going to come back to this tab. And I'm going to copy my MLS sheet. And now that we've narrowed down on this tab, go to next. And remember, that's our subject page, right? We don't have to do anything there. Here, we're going to, all our fields are already set up. So we don't have to do that again, do we? We set that up already. So we have our template in place. We're good. So we're going to auto-populate. Put in the MLS number. Boom. Pulls in all my characteristics. Remember, if it's not one that's listed, then I need to go in and adjust everything or make sure I enter all these fields. I'll go to next. There's my comps. Next again. Save so much time, right?
Yeah.
Because now I just go in and make my adjustments. So now I need to edit my adjustment list because we don't want to make an adjustment for age, do we? Let's take that to 0, hit save. That makes no adjustment. I'll leave that the same at $50 a square foot. My beds and my bathrooms, full and half, all stay the same.
When would you make an adjustment?
If they're all like last one in Ashbury Park, when they're all like similar age, similar type of home. But I'm using an older home that's been completely updated, and I'm using 80s, maybe even 2000 age homes. I'm not going to make an age adjustment just because the effective age of that house has been brought up because everything's been updated. So when I say everything, I don't mean just they did paint and floors, but the bathroom is still in 80s, the kitchen's still in 80s, the windows haven't been replaced. Okay. They have to change some of the bones, meaning the roof, the windows, the hot water heater, that kind of stuff, right? You can't just be lipstick and think, oh yeah, we got a new age, we got new floors and new paint, we're good. No, you know, the kitchen's a major expense, the bathrooms are a major expense, the windows, roof, all that are major expenses. They have to be considered. So that's all whenever you're going to take a look at it to understand that, right? Like I know you've got a investor that, and when they update it, you're not going to make an adjustment for age for some of those. You know, you need to take that out altogether, and you'll have to If you make an adjustment in the age field, it'll be compensating for the condition type thing. But we'll talk about that in a second. So we'll go next. Wait, nope, we gotta go back. Sorry, we didn't make our adjustments. So we took out the adjustment lists, these that we didn't want to make the adjustments on, right? Everybody online, you good? Yeah, Wendy, you good? Cool. So I'm gonna hit auto adjust comparables. Okay, I only made 5 adjustments. Let's see what they were. I don't worry about bedrooms, right? My bathrooms are all good. No half baths. They made adjustments to heated square footage. Some pretty big adjustments, huh? No, we talked about fireplace, acreage. So this one has 1.5 acres versus the others. This one, actually, you could build on it, but for instructional purposes, we're not going to make an adjustment. We're going to say we can't. Year built. Could have used 2000s there and have been the same. I'm not worried about subdivision. The only thing I'm looking for subdivision here is I want to know if any of these have an HOA. If they have an HOA, then I need to see what the amenities are. So Hunter's Creek, right? Old Hunter's Creek over where the pool is and the boat dock is. There's an HOA over there. So if you go to the other section of Hunter's Creek that's not any HOA, an appraiser, I've seen an appraiser give a $5,000 adjustment between the 2 sections because the one pays for the pool, pays for the boat dock. The other one, they don't have that access. So if there's amenities there, you need to make sure you account for it. So if you're in, again, I'm going to use like Onslow Bay and you're trying to pull a comp from Brookstone, which you shouldn't be, you need to make an adjustment because Onslow Bay has pool and other things that Brookstone does not, right? It depends on the amenities, you know. Yeah, and mainly if it's got a pool. Yeah, if it's got something like if it has just a dog park, they may not give anything. If it doesn't have anything, it's just an HOA, like $50 a month, they're probably not going to do anything, right? But you have to be aware of that type thing. Because I'm not worried about making an adjustment on year built. That's why. Your build is what it is always going to stay the same. I just use effective age to kind of judge where the county looks at it for, condition of it is, right? If I didn't know that house is completely updated and I seen that the effective age is 2004, and I'm like, oh, they've updated some stuff. You know, I can go out, they probably updated a panel and that kind of thing. You know, if you're looking at a house that's in the 70s, you need to look at the electric panel to make sure it's been updated. You need to look at the outlets and make sure that it has the 3 dots and not just 2, right? Because if it only has 2, that means all the wiring is not right. It's not the code, and it's going to be called in a home inspection. So if you're looking at any older homes, you need to pay attention to that stuff. So I'm not worried about subdivision. We're going to do garage though. We don't have a garage. This one does, so we need to take from it. Now our subject has a carport, right? So a carport versus a garage, we're just going to do, let's say, a $2,000 adjustment. I could go ahead and make an adjustment for garage and then make an adjustment for carport to add to the other ones, but it's going to be the same either way. So instead of doing a $2,000 adjustment or $4,000 for adjustment for garage, I'm going to do a $2,000 adjustment for those, and these that don't have a garage, I'm going to add $2,000 for my carport. Tracking? So this would have been a $4,000 adjustment, but I only did 2 because I got a carport. Make sense? Detached garage. This one has. Let's take a look at it. We'll click on the address. Let's just see what they're talking about for a detached garage space, because I've seen people put that in and it's not really a detached garage. Looks like it is, isn't it? Pretty nice one. So we'll have to make an adjustment for that. So we'll come back here, detached garage. Now we'll do minus 4,000 just because it's like a 1-car garage. Yes. Yeah. If it looks like a garage. If it's a shed, you know, again, I'm going to make sure it's permanent foundation, it's wired, that kind of thing. If it's not, then it's a couple $1,000 bucks. If it's wired, then you're going to be more for 4,000 for something that size. This is where your judgment and interpretation is going to be. This is where it's important that you go out and walk through to see, does it have power? Does it have a bathroom? You know, if it has a bathroom and power, well, holy shit, now we got a whole other thing. That's worth more than just a few, $4,000 or $8,000, right? Now it's probably worth 15, 20 grand. It depends. It depends. Everyone's, it depends.
That's the art side of the CMA.
That's the professional opinion side of the CMA. See here, and she's like, then she'll be like, well, why didn't you do that for the last one? And I'll be like, because it wasn't the same. She's like, why wasn't it? And then I had to point it out, and she's like, damn it, Al, will I ever get this right? And I'm like, yeah, you'll get it. You'll get it. So I know one of our subjects or one of our template fields is HOA, right? So to figure out if a house is in an HOA, all you have to do is click on your field here for HOA amount and then see. And if it has anything here, right? Because whenever you put a listing, you put in HOA and what the annual amount is. I'm pulling that field over. That's one of my template fields. This way, it's easy for me to know whether it's an HOA or not, without having to go and pull the property, look at it, you know, trying to figure it out. It's easy way to do data. Let the data work for you. Stipulation of sale. None of these are foreclosure short sales. We're good. So let's go next. Let's see how far our range is. Wow, those adjustments really aren't bad, are they? The net adjustments look good. Look at our range. Pretty tight, huh? Not bad for one that's out in the middle of nowhere. Could even lean up higher, couldn't we? See how easy that was? All these, you know, that's probably not a great comp because it's back in May. But if I take that out, it's going to push numbers. I'd have to take both of these out. But the other ones, they're all about the same as far as timeline, you know, as far as when they sold and amount adjusted amounts. You know, for this is probably about the best comp because it's the least amount, but arguably that's a good comp. They're all arguably good comps. This is where you weigh more on condition of the home, appearance, appeal, right? We didn't take into account this also has a big old barn on it. Barn's about ready to fall down, but it's also got 1.5 acres. The seller says, I want to list for 250. Are you going to list it for 250? I would. Look at this indicated price and the appeal. It's got a metal roof. It's not nothing for value, but for a buyer, it's going to love it, right? I've seen a lot of appraisers just do a CMA to get the value. Just if it's close and it's something like this, they'll make it work. Those that are lazy, that it's like this, they're going to do a Tidewater. All right, show me how you got the numbers and do my work for me. That's what they're going to. That's basically what they want you to do.
Which agent is responsible for the work in Tidewater? Is it the listing agent or the buyer agent?
Listing agent. Buyer agent, I don't care. I want it to appraise low for my buyer, right? Because I want them to pay less. But of course, I've got to renegotiate things, but if the seller sees it, they're not going to want to go back on the market. Not when homes are sitting in the market longer now. It's a different market. Huh? Oh, yeah.
It's interesting that there will be different grids because I've seen grids done different ways. I usually do the really like.
For Tidewater?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a different. I'll do a class on Tidewater and how to do Tidewater. I have a whole grid that I do. It's all, it works for me because I'm a geek. I can pull it over. I can export the data, pull it into my spreadsheet, make my adjustments, and it looks just like their grid. So I don't have to handwrite it. It's all typed in and makes the adjustments automatically. And then all I have to do is put in comments. And oh, you have no clue. No, you have no clue.
Hey, can you mention that to Sue?
What?
That the listing agent is
She loves doing both sides. Do what? What about it?
I have a spreadsheet for that.
Oh, yeah.
My life is not probably on a spreadsheet.
So let's go next, and we'll do our range. All right, again, I'm going to calculate 2.5, 233 to 245. I'm just going to adjust this to 238 to 245 with a suggested price. We'll go 242. Really doesn't matter. I'm in the range. When buyers are looking for properties, what kind of a price range do they look at? Meaning, if I go to 250 and I can't find anything, how much do they go up? Depends on the price point. Up to about 300,000, they're probably only going to go $5,000. You get over 300, they're probably going to start going $10,000 increments. So when you're looking at price, you know, I always want something in those two price points. Meaning, so for this one at 238 is the low, that gets me under 240, right? And if I'm in, does it matter if I'm at 242, 245, or 248? Probably the same buyer looking up to 250, isn't it? It's arguable, right? If they want to go to 260, okay, that's fine if we go to 260, but I'd rather do 259.9. We're still catching that. Phonetically, it sounds better because we're listing high. Does that make sense? But if we make a price change, so if a seller says, I want to do 260, okay, well, we'll start at 259.9. And they'll say that's $100 less. Yep. I didn't say 159.9, did I? It's $100,000 less. Got to work with me. Okay. Don't be afraid to throw some, what Roberta says is shade. Don't be afraid to throw some shade back at them, right? So if they call shit out on you, throw it back at them. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. And then what I explained to them is, look, we'll start at 259.9. And what we'll do is, if we don't have any offers in about 30 days, then we need to make a price change. And I don't mean the 258 because buyers are looking in $10,000 increments. So we make a price change, we need to go to 249, which puts us in line with what the market says. And they'll be like, okay, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, or something like that. All right, well, but I talked about it now, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean in 30 days I'm automatically just going to make a price change, because we got to look at data, and we'll have another day where I show you whether you should not make a price change, because there's things you need to look at before you make a price change. Just making a price change isn't always a solution. You know, if there's nothing selling, right? Making a price change, unless it's a big price change, isn't going to make a difference. We'll talk about that later. Questions about this, the CMAs? Do you have any that you're having problems with?
1, 3, 3, and 10 Branch Road. Oh, I said that way too fast. Yes, 1, 3, 3, 10 Bridge Road.
What town?
Wilmington.
Ooh, this is active on the market now. 1780. Let's look at so remember, this system is not updated. CRS doesn't update right away. It takes a while. But what I'm looking at here is if it's been completely rehabbed, they probably didn't pull permits, or else, yeah. But if they completely remodeled it and it was something that required a permit and they didn't, it may not reflect here. So don't be too caught up on it, right? So if you know your person did permits or anything that required permits and you don't see it here, don't be so upset about it. But so anyway, so it was built in 72, but it's 1,780 square feet. It's a single story. All right, so let's go back to the MLS and let's see what we can find. This is a good one. All right, everybody online, you good? Yep, cool. So this one's in Wilmington, so it'll be a good one because I'm not familiar with Wilmington, but we're going to make it work. 133 10 Bridge. Boom, hold it up. Is that right? Okay, use this tab. I'll do a radius. We'll leave it at 1 mile because it looks like it's pretty dense. There's a lot of homes there. Okay, now let's come over and start filtering things out. We'll go to closed. Like we normally would. We'll do months and change this to 4 months back. Then I want to go, we still got 31. Let's change this to stories. Make sure we hit max of 1 story. Then I'm also going to change this to subtype to single family residence. Still got 15, don't we? So let's go to heated square feet and we'll start with, let's do 1,400 to 2,000. 7, that's pretty good, right? All over the place. So our subject is brick. Let's put it in here. 133. Bridge. Boom. I want to be able to copy this.
Good God, 1,300. I bet somebody coming out of the room.
That's crazy.
Yeah, 1,300 square feet, 600.
It's 1,800 square feet. All right. So,
Yes.
yep. Why it's doing this over here? That's so weird.
Yeah, that's actually kind of crazy because I did an open house a few weekends back and they actually, the price came down, it was at 640, now it's 600. It's a lot less square footage. It's like a 4-4.
So I'm looking at heated square, I'm not looking at age, right? I'm looking at square footage. That's 1,800. So we'll do that one. 16, that's 17. We'll do that one. 14, 17. I don't like that one. 16, 18, 17. We'll even do that one because it's 1,600 heated square feet. It's a risk. What's that?
You threw it up, you said, I don't like that one. Came back down.
Yeah, I don't like that one. Because it depends. Let's take a look at it.
It's way out. The first one, 380,
It's way off what other, if I'm looking at the range of what my other ones are, the price is way off. So I don't want to use it as a comp because it just seems to me like it's not, there's some reason, that's why. See, this is, yeah, this is why, yeah. Sorry for the online. You need to see this. Everybody's got to see the green carpet.
That's 400.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That's 392 is what that sold for. Okay, so that's, when I'm looking at the data here and I'm seeing what these are, and then I see that 392, I said I don't want to use it. Yeah, yeah. Well, I was too, but it's 1,700, so it makes it. But when I look at this price and I see what the other ones are, it kind of negates itself. So we've got 4. Yep. So what I'm going to do real quick before we get into doing adjustments, because I know my comp has been completely remodeled, is let's look at the photos real quick of these to see the condition of them. So we just have an idea of what we're working with. And I'm just buzzing through them real quick to see if there's anything that really sticks out that's like either bad or good. So far, that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Is that a sunroom?
That's a sunroom.
A sunroom has to, it can be considered heated square footage again, right? Because you have like air conditioning.
Unless they added ductwork to it, the only way it can be, it would be considered other square footage or just closed in. They'll give it value for sure. They probably give something like that, 4, maybe 5,000 in value, but it's not square footage. Yeah.
What if
So that's the only thing is that
What if it has that,
mini split,
Yeah,
still considered other square footage. It has to have the same heat and air, same heat source as the rest of the house.
oh, shoot, okay.
Yep.
So it doesn't make a difference if it has a main split or not.
That's what you said, if it was like as long as it's in the wall, like now.
Yeah, but that's for the, look at that. That's nice wallpaper there. That's if it's for the whole house. So if I have that's right. So if I have a unit that's stuck in the wall and it's a mini split, right? And that's what my whole heat source is, I can count that as a heat source. But if I have it in a window unit, it doesn't count as a heat source.
Okay, what if the downstairs is central air and heating, and the upstairs doesn't have it, but you put a mini split, it's not going to.
Yeah, that's still fine because it's like a split system, because some houses have 2 systems. Yeah, it's more when you have yes, it can't be a window unit. Yeah.
But if it's in the wall on the sunroof,
If you cut a hole out and put a window unit in a wall, that counts. But if you take the window unit and you put it in a window, it doesn't count.
oh, okay, cool.
Yes. That's community.
Is that
No,
because
that's the
it's
community.
temporary?
What's that?
Because if it's in the window, it's temporary.
Yeah. Even though if it's just a hole in the wall and it's got a cord coming out and going on an outlet, they don't consider that temporary. They consider that still permanent because it's a hole in the wall. Yes. Yeah. But a mini split in this now, you're talking upstairs and downstairs, right? But if it's like an attached building or attached room to the house, it's different. They don't count that.
Unless it's in the wall, in the wall.
Even if it's a hole in the wall or a split, an appraiser's not going to count that.
As actually square.
He's going to count that as other square footage. Yeah. Huh? If you remove the doors, it should be considered the same as the rest of the house, right? But then that needed to be permitted
Yeah.
when you closed it in.
I'll just take pictures and say, what is this on those?
Yeah. That's why I'm saying there's no set standard, but I've ran into that all the time, and I'm telling you, it's nuts. So that one didn't look bad. This one looks like it's pretty good. It's been remodeled too. And it's got a detached. Yeah.
I like that red door.
Was that orange, that orange
Yeah.
wall?
I like that orange wall. You like those blue base cabinets and that island too? I knew you would. It should have been the rest of the kitchen though. That's really nice. So these have all been updated, right? So they're all good comps.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do CMA. You selected. Next.
Yeah, that we currently have.
All right, auto-populate. Wait, auto-populate.
This is like a text.
It's kind of a test / justification. Our seller wanted us to list it at 615, but all the shows that we had, everyone saying that the price is too high. But she's very stubborn.
So we'll do edit adjustment list. I'm not doing anything for age, right? I am going to take price per square foot up to like 70 because it's Wilmington and Wilmington's got a higher price point. You see that? I'll leave this the same. Let's actually take this up too. This is where you have to make adjustments for the area that you're in. I'll leave half bath 3. All right, I didn't do anything for age, so let's do auto adjust. Okay, I'm not worried about bedrooms, bathrooms, half bath, 1 there, heated square footage, fireplace, acreage, not worried about it. Age built, we're at 69. They all looked about the same condition, right? So I don't have to worry about age. If I go to garage, I'm not worried about fireplace. An appraiser's not going to probably make an adjustment. He may make one down there, but I think pretty sure we have one, and I'm pretty sure all the other ones had one too. Those we're going to make an adjustment for the 1-car garage. Detached exterior structures. That one had a shed. It's not listing. It probably gave a couple $1,000s to it because it didn't look that big. None of them are HOA. Those are all good. Everybody tracking? Zip through that. Here's my range. 517 to 536. The high end is 616, which is probably what the seller says. This one up here sold for this, and ours is bigger. We want to list for that.
Yeah.
Price per square foot takes me there. The problem is you don't have any. And that's a recent sale too. What just closed. That ain't gonna help at all for you trying to do anything less. That actually helps you. That actually helps you right there because it's only 17 and it just closed like 2 days ago.
Okay.
So that helps pull numbers up for you.
Yeah.
There's just nothing else supporting it.
Yeah.
Which one was that? That was 754 timber.
I'd like to see if that one has an ordinance.
It was a cash sale.
Yeah. That's my thought too.
See, this is how you'd interpret the data, right? We look and it's sold for highest for the area. That was also remodeled, right? But it was sold for cash. So they didn't have to worry about an appraisal, which is what all the other buyers that are looking at it are talking about is because they're financing. So the feedback you're getting is it's too high because somebody hasn't saw the value in it. They saw the value in this one when they bought it. Because I was going to tell you if this one was a finance deal, right? If that had VA, FHA, whatever, and I would almost tell you to reach out to the buyer agent and say, hey, did you that appraise? Did y'all have an appraisal done on that? And I have a listing on the corner. And just pick for information. All you do is take no, right? You can still do that and say, hey, did you get an appraisal done? But it looks to me like it may have because they went under contract in July and it didn't close till September. So they may have had an appraisal done.
Okay.
Right? And it was originally listed at 609. List price was 589 and it closed for 599 and they didn't do any concessions. So I'm guessing that they probably offered over.
So it's kind of one of those you could get lucky, but if they want to finance, don't they count the chickens there?
Yeah. So we'll come over to this, go next. We'll do our range.
You said you're working with an investor. Did you want to buy the server part?
No. No.
You don't want to buy it?
Yeah.
Maybe you do? Yes.
Yeah.
Because the one over at our neighborhood sale, I think it's.
The whole part?
How much?
Well, originally they were selling both. The other one over by Toby's.
We'll get to, let me finish this. We'll talk. So here you can see the numbers, and when you talk to the seller and they're like, well, that one just sold for 616 and we rehabbed it, it's the same thing. You're not going to get him to drop. The seller's not going to drop price.
Yeah.
And you can't ask her to drop price because all you're going to do is lose confidence. She's going to lose confidence in you. Because when you see this, when it just sold and it's basically the same house, right? If we come here, it's smaller, it's sold for less, and it's rehabbed. And that's the same thing a seller is seeking. You know, we did a complete rehab too. Ours is bigger. We're priced accordingly because you're priced at how much? 615. Yeah.
I was there last year.
You can, but an investor, you're not. The only thing that's going to get to an investor like that is time, and they're going to see it, right? And they're going to see other things. So for something like that, you're going to have to look at the other homes that are active and pending on the market in that price point, right? And watch what goes under contract. Okay, do a bigger radius of 2 miles and set up for the seller to see that for any time a price change comes up or a new house goes into market or it goes pending. So then they can start seeing what's going on in the market themselves. Because then they're going to realize and see we're priced too high. Look at the competition. Yes, yes. And you can what I would do if they didn't know that closed, you can say, hey, you know what? That one up the street, one on Timber, they remodeled it. It just closed for $599. It was only 1,680 square feet. They did pay cash though. So remember, someone that comes along is probably going to finance. That's why the feedback we're getting says that we're priced too high, is because everybody else wants to finance, and all the ones that were financed, they're selling in the mid 500s.
Okay.
Just want you to know, seller, that's all. You don't need to tell them anything else because an investor knows it, right? You're telling them the numbers. They're like, oh, cool, that's great for us. It's sold for 600 and it's smaller. We're priced great. That's what they're thinking. You're planting the seeds for the other stuff, and then you're sending them. Bless you. I saw another one coming. Bless you. I saw him like coming, so that's why I was waiting. So, and then you set them up on the drip for the active and pendings in the area. And when you're on the phone, you tell them, hey, I'm going to start sending you all the homes in that area so you can watch the competition like I watch it, right? So then when they get emails, they're not feeling like you're spamming them, and set up the subscription just like they were a buyer, have it go to them, and then they'll start seeing it. And the only thing you can do at that point is set them up on the reports that we talked about, right? So they can see the activity reports and CB list track, and then also in the MLS. So they go out, one going out every Monday. Every other Monday they get one, but it's one from one and one from the other, right? So then they're getting the activity, they're getting the homes coming on off the market all the time. You're keeping in touch with the investor. So now you call them maybe once a week and say, just making sure you got the reports. We checked in, we went by, looked at the house. Yep, we're waiting. What are you doing to market it? Well, you see, we got everything online. You see, we got some good things. It's just the market's slow. If you saw, nothing is sold. Nothing's going on pending. It's not just us.
Yeah.
That's the conversations.
Okay.
Make sense? Any questions on CMAs?
Do you mind going back to the recommendation, high and low, that one, please? Take that quick.
Well, let me go back here. That's the high and low. 523 to 550 with about 540 as a price. But this is what you want to look at. This is what you want to see the shot of right there. Because that tells you what the comps were right here, right?
Yep.
And it tells you what the range is. And it shows the high one.
Okay.
And this is the price per square foot, which helps push numbers up for you, but it still doesn't get you that 615 range.
Yeah. Okay.
When the seller sees that, they're like, we're right on the money. We're priced too low. We need to go up $1,000. I mean, that's what they're going to think. I'm just telling you, it's exactly what they're going to think.
All right. Thank you.
We are at our limit now. Actually, we're 11 o'clock. Stop sharing screen. Come back to this.
Having fun.
Thank you all for coming online. Appreciate it. Hope you got something out of it. See y'all later.